Good morning and welcome back to Big Bets on Campus Live, presented by BetMGM. This is the Elite 8 college basketball betting preview. I'm Stuckey. Joining me, as always, are the guys from the three-man weave, Matt Cox, McKeon, and of course, the one and only Mr. Jim Root. Have a lot to get to today. We're going to go through all four games, two today, two tomorrow. We'll also bring in the white-hot Nick Giffen to give some player props, and we'll talk with the universally loved and respected Darren Rovell for a market report. Before we get started, I do want to remind everyone to make sure you download the award-winning Action Network app. You can find all of our bets there in addition to an abundance of data and content for today's slate and beyond. Also, Big Bets on Campus is presented. Gentlemen, no one seeds are left. Jim, how's your bracket looking?
Horrific. I didn't know this was coming up, but it's terrible. I'm frustrated by the lack of 1 and 2 seeds, the teams that were good all year. I get that they're not that great, but it's fun from a unpredictability sense. I'm still a little annoyed with the games we have here stuck. I'm just going to be grumpy on that.
All right. Well, we can do better than that from a vibes perspective. So let's try to find some winners on the slate. We still have some good games. At least we have some competitive games in the Elite Eight. So Matty Cox, first game of the day: Florida Atlantic, Kansas State. Do you want to bring some positivity? And what are you seeing here?
Yeah, well, the only fun left for me in this tournament revolves with my best bet in this game, and that's my FAU Owls dancing in paradise, winning in paradise. Final Four in paradise is what's about to be printed on those shirts. I know the whole Marquise Noel thing has gone. He's a complete juggernaut of a one-man wrecking crew.
19
You can't
assists,
stop
by
him.
the way. 19. Oof.
19, nice player. Guy who was a fringe role player at Little Rock, 3 years ago. It's insane what he's where he's come. But yeah,
Role player? No.
yeah, when he first got there, he kind of was. Okay, anyway, we'll debate that at another time. I just love this matchup for FAU, right? You're not going to stop Noel. You can only hope to contain him. But FAU, if there's one team that has the guard depth and the quickness in the backcourt to do so, I think it's with Boyd, Greenlee. You have some physicality options there with Martin. Davis probably won't check him. Davis will probably have to check Keontae Johnson. But Davis, I think, at least has a chance to maybe stand up to Johnson. There are some real matchup concerns that Michigan State had as well. But I think Michigan State, the way they scored the ball, is sort of a precursor to what we see with FAU, except I think FAU has more consistent avenues to points. They could score at the rim, too, with Rosado and Golden after that terrible matchup against the Vols. So I think we see the big guys actually come to play here for the Owls. That depth has been the story all year throughout this run. I think you see some new faces, some new names emerge for the Owls to get this done today.
Got it. And by the way, I should congratulate you on your Miami first half bet, which you gave out a couple days in a row on the
Two-unit
show.
winner. Yep,
So
it's a well play.
congratulations on that. That was I should have bet that as soon as you gave it out 2 days in a row. I knew it was a winner. Kai, what are you seeing here?
I'm going with FAU too. Going with my heart, like Matt. I really want to see the Owls make the Final Four. It's a great story. They were really underseeded in this tournament to begin with. They're 34-3. This team's really, really good. Super deep, multiple weapons. That makes them very, very tough to prepare for in a tournament setting where Noel and Johnson can beat you. They are the guys. They are all Americans for K-State. They might have matchup advantages. FAU, you don't know who's going to beat you on any given night. That's what makes them so tough to prepare for. They're well coached, as is K-State. Both these teams feel like teams of destiny, so I'm going with my heart here. I'm going with FAU.
Jim, are you going to weave consensus, or are you going to be grumpy here and then just go the other way?
No, I'm riding with the Owls with my boys here. I also like the over. I think this game profiles as up and down. I think there's a little bit of slingshot for FAU after playing Tennessee and getting, dragged down into the muck with them. Now you can speed it up a little bit against a team that's very willing to do so in Kansas State. A point guard in Noel that's going to keep pushing the tempo. He's what scares me if I'm backing FAU, of course. After the game he had in the Garden, it's going to be big time for Noel again. But like these guys said, FAU's got an army of guards to throw at him. A lot of different bodies that can handle him. I've said that Keontae Johnson and Noel are the best cutter passer combination in the country. I think FAU's attentive enough off the ball where they're not going to get consistently cooked that way. Michigan State kept losing Johnson on cuts. It was really baffling. I think they'll make Noel finish over the top at the rim, which is going to be really difficult for a guy that's 5'7". And I'm riding with FAU. I think they've just got more scorers, playmakers. They're just as good as K-State, despite what the seeds tell you. I'll take the Owls and the over here, Stuck.
Yeah, I agree with FAU. We'll make it a consensus. And you're right, FAU does grade out elite guarding cutting action per synergy. So we'll make it 4-4, just like the other night against Tennessee. We'll all go with the Owls. For what it's worth, if you look historically at the Elite Eight, first half unders have been super profitable, although game overs have been profitable. And if you look at the pace versus the projected pace in the first half, these games usually have started out very slow. So if you like an over and it starts out slow, and maybe you look for a live over here. And I think part of that is, and if you look for Final Four actually is faster than the Elite Eight to start out games into the first half. I think these teams are just very nervous in the Elite Eight. We just have to win this game, and then, hey, we're on to next weekend. And then once you get to next weekend, teams seem to loosen up. So if this starts out slow, it could be a good live over. But it seems like a consensus on the Owls once again. Good stuff there. Let's now take a break in the action and go to Nick Giffen for some player props.
All right, thanks, Stuck. And I think I'll make it a consensus 5 for 5 on FAU. But going to the player prop side of things, I am actually going to take Nick Boyd under 1.5 3 points made. And you can get that at some pretty significant plus money, which is why we're taking this, because as you'll see, we have 1.5 3 points made exactly projected for Nick Boyd here. So getting that plus money in the under is going to be very, very nice. So, you know, FAU is facing Kansas State, and Kansas State is an up-tempo game. You know, they do play at a pretty fast pace, but that is counteracted by the fact that Kansas State's defense is strong enough, 27th in the nation, to keep Florida Atlantic's team total in line with what they've done recently over their recent closer games. They've had a few blowout games, which is kind of put a little wrench in some of the player minutes, but in the 5 recent close games, this is pretty in line with the points they've scored. Their team total is. So in those 5 games under their current starting rotation, Boyd has 1.4 3 points made in those games. So even just that little bit of a small bump in that implied team total only pushes that up to about 1.5, 1.6 3 points made. However, Kansas State, they have a pretty solid 3-point defense. They are 21st in the nation in 3-point field goal percentage allowed, and teams take fewer 3-point shots against them than the national average. So that bumps that projection back down from around 1.6 back down to this 1.5 number that we're getting. So definitely getting that plus 150 or so on the under is very nice when we have this projected exactly at 1.5. On to my second pick, we're going to go to the other Elite Eight game today, and that is Gonzaga versus UConn. And I'm going to take Malachi Smith under 8.5 points. For Gonzaga here, when they're facing UConn, this is a slight tempo down game, so we already do just get likely a fewer less possessions. UConn also allows the fourth lowest, I should say, percentage of points to come from downtown against them. So you look at all the points scored against UConn, the percentage of points that come from 3 is 4th lowest in the nation of all 363 teams. And Malachi, he scores nearly 13% above the national average from 3 if you look at the ways he scores his points. And, that means UConn's got to allow the points from somewhere else. And usually for UConn, that is by way of the free throw line. They allow the 7th most percentage of points from the free throw line, but Malachi does not really get to the line. He only scores 11.5 or so percentage of his points from the free throw line. So this just isn't the right situational matchup here for Malachi Smith. That's why we're projecting him for 7.1 points. So really like the under here on Malachi Smith. And I think I'm going to throw it back to you guys to preview this game.
All right, good stuff as always, Nick, and stay hot. Let's go right into that game that Nick just talked about. Gonzaga, Connecticut. I think UConn's up to 2.5 point favorite at most places here. Back around to the top of the order. Matty Cox, Matty Fence Rider here.
Yeah, on the fence pretty hard. Hope you guys have more conviction with me. Just a good game to watch. I'll have the popcorn and the feet up here. But 2 things to watch matchup-wise. Fascinating to see how well UConn's extended defense can guard Gonzaga's back cutting. We've talked a lot about K-State's ability to back cut, and we've seen that play out. But a lot of the Zags do so well is they get you in back cuts because they, their shooters draw you out. They set you up there with that transition attack. So if they can corral that UConn and not let up any layups in the back, and that'll be huge. And on the other end, can Gonzaga stay in front of anyone? Because they couldn't against UCLA, be it in the half court or transition. UConn's just as athletic, if not more athletic, off the bounce with Jackson and Hawkins than the Bruins are. So the over kind of spoke to me, but I ended up staying away here. So officially, I will be on the fence on both sides in total.
Kai, on or off the fence?
I'm off the fence, Stuckey. I'm going UConn. By the way, one of these teams better win the title. I'm not taking any of the left side teams to win the title, guys. Come on, UConn, #1 team in KenPom this year. I fully believe they're the best team left in the field. I saw them in Portland. They were the best team then. They have gotten back to that level. I mean, they've been crushing teams so far in the tournament. Some good competition too. Arkansas, St. Mary's, Iona, nothing to sneeze at. The great offense can kind of trump anything. So Gonzaga, of course, always has a chance to win in these type of situations. They do have the #1 offense in the country. I just see UConn kind of handling them. They have the personnel to at least contain or try to contain Timmy. Mark Few might have a coaching edge against Dan Hurley, but I still like UConn in this one.
And by the way, thank you for agreeing that it was a terrible shot, but what a shot.
Terrible shot.
But
great shot, but terrible.
Unbelievable, legendary shot that he made it, but in the grand scheme of things, not a great shot. But I agree with you here with UConn. I think Gonzaga's defense, especially at the rim, is finally going to get exposed. And look, they got Bona was out for UCLA. They got Lampkin was out for TCU. This is a different story against this UConn team. I think they're going to just eat on the glass. And there's a big time risk that Timmy gets in foul trouble here. UConn is good. Jim, you're saying you're being a curmudgeon. Every team left is bad. UConn is good. Like kind of said, #1 on KenPom. Per Torvik, they've been #1 since February 1st for the past couple weeks. Are you a buyer of UConn?
I'm buying UConn today. I took him at -1. I still lean that way, 2.5. They also lost 6 of 8 in league play. I'm not like, holy cow, UConn, what a team super deserving of a title. I'm curmudgeon today. I'm sticking with that take. I'm okay with that. I do think they win today, though. I agree with you that the defensive foibles for Gonzaga catch up to them. I wonder if they go back heavy to that Malachi Smith, Hunter Salas lineup that actually stood up a little bit defensively against UCLA. They needed to, because Hickman and Bolton were just getting cooked. And I could see UConn doing that to them as well. Not the same level of perimeter isolation scorers as Tiger and Jaime Jaquez, but I still think as they continue to step up in competition, they're going to need like actual defenders on the floor. And that's just not Bolton. That's not Hickman. So going to be some tough decisions for Mark Few to make. That's why he makes the big bucks. I think he has a coaching advantage as well, but Hurley's just run through Rick Pitino, Randy Bennett, and who's the third one that I'm forgetting? Musselman. Yeah. So like a group that a lot of people really respect. And he's managed to come through because that team is so loaded with talent. And I agree. The Timmy foul trouble angle could completely wreck Gonzaga. If Sanogo attacks him one-on-one in the post and he gets a couple fouls, then I think this game's over. So I'm going to lean UConn. Actually, like I said, I took him -1, 2.5, still lean that way.
Yeah, my one fear with UConn is that they're going to cool off eventually. They're 30 of 67 from 3 in the tournament, over 45%. And I was very fearful. They could get by if they have a bad shooting night tonight, just by dominating the glass, going inside. Was very fearful of a potential shooting regression night against a Houston. That you can't just rely on the post against Houston. Well, I guess you could if they show up like they did last night, but they could have an off shooting night and still a couple and still win the tournament. They're playing just at another level. All right, good stuff there. Let's move on to Sunday, and we'll start off with a tournament rematch, an overtime result. I think it was the first round last year between Creighton and San Diego State. Matty Cox, back around the order. What do you say?
I like the Jays. Both teams are in many ways mirror images of each other on the defensive end, right? You have a enforcer up front who protects the rim. He's always kind of camped out in that restricted area, and they have great defenders, physical, long on the perimeter. I just trust Creighton's offense more. I don't think the Aztec offense display you saw against Alabama is sustainable. The Matt Bradley roller coaster ride is a fun one or a not so fun one, depending on what part of the inflection point you're at there. They're more balanced. I think that was the point we all underestimated with the Aztecs, right? They have multiple scorers, guys who can get you one. But I think they're more, grinders, gritty guys, not like the skill and depth that Creighton has, which we're starting to kind of see pop. That didn't really pop for much of the season. Guys like Trey Alexander, get more balance in that scoring attack. So it's very simply, I just trust the offensive upside and the trajectory that the Jays are on right now. So I'm gonna lay it with Creighton.
Yeah, I think Creighton as well have a future. I don't see enough value as of right now to lay it, but you're right. Matt Bradley, if he's on, he can't be stopped. But when he's off, I mean, he's not even hitting the rim. His shots are 2 feet to the left, 2 feet to the right, and then he can just get it going out of anywhere. I mean, I think he's a 40% career three-point shooter over 5 years. But I swear he's either 20% or 60%, depending on the game. Kai, what are you seeing here?
Yeah, Stuckey, I wrote down lean San Diego State here, but I got to be honest, I'm kind of on the fence here. I'm the most torn in this game out of any other game in the Elite Eight. I'm kind of leaning towards Creighton right now. They're clicking. They were preseason darling. This team was thought to be top 10 preseason. They're getting back to that point. You could argue their swoon was kind of due to Kalkbrenner being out of the lineup, and maybe they're showing their true form now. They have had a pretty good path. People will definitely discount their path to this point, but it doesn't matter. They're here. The better defense is San Diego State, the more proven defense on that side of the floor. Creighton, though, more balanced team. I do think San Diego State's legit, but they also just had a 3 for 27 Alabama shooting game. Pretty fortunate to get that type of performance from arguably the best team in the country. The graphic might say lean San Diego State here, but I'm kind of teetering to the other edge right now.
Fair enough. And yeah, if San Diego State, like they did muck up that game. Yes, they benefited from the Alabama off shooting night, which could always happen. But if they do the same, and I think they'll be able to control the tempo, Creighton is very comfortable in the half court. It's not like a team that has to get up and down and run. Jim, tell us why we shouldn't be excited about this game, which I'm sure you're going to tell us why.
No, okay, fine. Yeah, it's an 8-9 from last year. Now one of these teams is probably playing for a national title. Well, it's fine. Both these teams are actually good. I'll give them credit. Been pretty solid most of the year. San Diego State won regular season and tournament title in the Mountain West. I'll tip my cap to that. I'm actually going San Diego State here. Two elite defenses, like Matt said, very solid rim protectors. I was pretty impressed with what San Diego State did yesterday. If you get that kind of performance from Trammell, like playmaking, scoring, it's a different team. And coming into the year, that's what we said. Oh, they've added a little bit of scoring boost with him and Ledee. Like those guys really showed up against Alabama. That was the difference maker from what they were last year. Now I know Creighton fans will probably yell, "Hey, Nembhard didn't play in the game last year. Kalkbrenner got hurt before OT. We still won." San Diego State controlled that game. I think they can do that again here too. They're up 9 with like 3.5 minutes left. Big time comeback for Creighton. Big time choke job for San Diego State. But after seeing them take care of Alabama, I don't see this team choking the same way. So I'm going to ride with the Aztecs here, plus 1.5.
All right, good stuff there. Before we get to the final Elite Eight game of the weekend, let's check in with the universally loved Darren Rovell for a market report.
All right, let's get you some of the splits for the Elite Eight. We'll start you off with Kansas State, a 1.5-point favorite over FAU, getting 86% of the bets and 87% of the money. UConn, a 2.5-point favorite over Gonzaga, getting 67% of the bets and 71% of the money at BetMGM. Then we'll do Creighton, 1.5-point favorites over San Diego State. They're getting 61% of the bets and 58% of the money. And Miami is the only dog that's getting the majority of the bets and money. They're 4.5-point dogs against Texas. They're getting 55% of the bets and 61% of the money. Now let's get to the totals. In that Kansas State FAU game, the number is 143.5, 57% of the bets and 66% of the handle on the over. UConn Gonzaga, 153.5, 71% of the bets and 80% of the money on the over. Then we'll do Creighton and San Diego State. 132.5 is the number. 91% of bets and 90% of the money on the over. Yeah, that's definitely going under now. And Miami, Texas, 149.5, 62% of the bets and 71% of the money is on the over. And reminding you that Big Bets on Campus is presented by BetMGM. Use bonus code ACTION when signing up to get up to $1,000 paid back in bonus bets if you don't win your first bet. Terms and conditions apply. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Back to you.
All right, good stuff there. Thank you, Darren. We do have one final game to get to, and that is Miami, Texas. tomorrow. Look, I doubted this Miami team because of their defense, but I mean, if they're going to put up 90 on Houston, look out. Matty Cox, what do you see?
Yeah, I like the over. I think you're just riding the momentum of both these offenses. The fact that you're right, the Canes put up 90 against Houston. I mean, Texas is a stellar defensive unit, but without Dylan Disu up front protecting the rim, they're not as big up front. I think they're underrated defensively still with Bishop in there, who was terrific offensively last game. He's an underrated defender, and the numbers don't actually show Disu as a game-changing rim protector. I don't quite buy that. I think anecdotally, I'm going to trust my eyes there and tell me he's a pretty critical piece on that end. I think that plays well for the over. Again, with the shot making that Miami's rolling with right now, and Texas, another awesome game off the bench for Sir'Jabari Rice. He's kind of the X factor for them offensively, lifts the ceiling substantially. So you're just basically pinning two offensive race cars that are trending up right now. I love the over here, sitting at 140-ish right now. No steam to the over so far. So yeah, I like the over.
Yeah, this is a pass for me, but I was super impressed. I mean, Disu's just been an absolute machine on offense of late, and just to what Texas did without him was very impressive. But I'm right around where this line is, so it's a pass for me. Kai, how about you?
Yeah, slightly into Texas here, and that's basically just a prayer to the gods, letting the better team win this game so we can have a decent Final Four. Texas versus UConn or Gonzaga would be great. Miami, fantastic offense, great guards. I don't think they're a Final Four caliber squad. Clearly, guards win in March, and Pack, as well as Poplar, and I'm forgetting the last guy, Wong, the ACC Player of the Year. Those guys can lead you to victory against any team in this tournament, as we saw. But I do think Texas is the more complete team. They're pretty much elite on both ends of the floor. Disu, we'll see if he plays. There's going to be some movement in the line, obviously, when he's announced. They said he's going to take warm-ups tomorrow to know for sure. But a lean towards Texas for me, either way.
All right, well, the vibes have never been lower. You're just rooting for so we get a potentially decent Final Four. Jim, you want to try to bring the vibes up to close the show?
I lean Miami here. I don't know if that ups the vibe or not, but I do think their guard play has been so fantastic that I'll ride with them. And honestly, Omier has been like super dominant against really good front courts. Took care of Houston, took care of Indiana. Just I can't stop being impressed by his play at this point. And you add in what Wong has done. Pack getting 10 3-pointers off against Houston. That is an indictment against Houston. You gotta be tuned in to the best shooter on the floor, and they let him go 7 for 10. That pretty much opened everything up for drivers. Omier inside. We can see that happening again here. Texas is fantastic on defense, but like Matt said, no Disu, so they've got to be a little bit more defensive, protective of the rim. That opens up it up for jump shooters. Pack can step into that void. I just kind of like the way this team is rolling right now. They have a blast when they play. There's a lot of like goofing around, and Larinagas having a blast too. So I'll take the points, 4.5, and think Miami keeps it close.
All right, good stuff there. That'll do it for us. Jim, go enjoy the games. Maybe we'll get some good games that you can enjoy, and hopefully we all gave you some winners. But thanks for tuning in. Thanks, as always, to the guys from the Three-Man Weave, and thanks to Darren and Nick for their insights as well. One final reminder to make sure you download the award-winning Action Network app. You can find all of our bets there, in addition to an abundance of data and content for today's slate and beyond. Good luck on all of your wagers this weekend, and we'll see you next week. Cheers.